Nearly 2 years ago, I wrote a book. It's called Fire to Fork. And in that book, there are a bunch of tips. So I thought I'd finally kind of run you through some of these tips about specifically how to plan for a trip. This is all about packing, shopping, and just managing your gear, because it is generally an absolute pain in the ass and something that people do quite poorly. So let's get into it. All right, just a reminder, somewhere in this episode there is a code word. Comment that code word down below to win a copy of my book. Firstly, the way you set up the back of your car. Now, I've had lots of setups over the years, and I've seen a lot of setups over the years. And one of the things that I continuously see that I think is a mistake is completely filling the back of a wagon or a ute with drawers or specifically cut out bits for specific items. And there's no flexible space. Flexible space is gold. Since I took a couple of drawers out of my setup, I've actually found it more usable than when I had drawers. Don't get me wrong, drawers are essential. I love drawers. Drawers change everything. But having flexible usable areas is actually dramatically more useful than drawers, because then you just use bags and boxes and things like that. But trust me, don't make it all drawers. Next, cargo barriers. Now this kind of goes against that. Cargo barriers and boxes around fridges, they may look like they make the area less flexible. Trust me, they make it more flexible. Having barriers between your your passenger space and your boot actually allows you to push more stuff up against it. Whereas if there's no barrier, you load that stuff up and it just falls over. This actually allows you to pack the boot more tightly. And then having a box around your fridge allows you to pack stuff on top of the fridge, which gives you a much better area. Whereas if the fridge is just naked, anything you push against it, when you pull the fridge out, will fall out. That's also one of the advantages of a standing fridge, is that it is a built-in barrier to all that stuff and you don't have to slide it out. So that is a real advantage of a stand-up fridge. Speaking of fridges, this is important. I don't think you should have anything less than a 40 litre. Now, obviously you can get by with less, but for one person, I say 40 litres is perfect. Then I say about 15 litres per person extra. So got two people, 55 is great. Now I'm going for comfort, okay? There are going to be people in the comments going, oh, we get by with an esky that's 20 litres. Good on you. Absolutely, it's doable. But there's a big difference between doable and enjoyable. And having a slightly bigger fridge does make a big difference. Now, I have gone overkill. I've got 178 litres of fridge. You don't need that. You definitely don't need that. That is good for like 20 people. But I think for a family with a couple of kids, an 80 litre fridge is perfect. Not everyone can fit it, but that to me is the perfect size fridge for a comfortable family getaway. Speaking of fridges, having your fridge as low in your setup as possible and avoiding having to have a drop slide is really, really useful. Drop slides take up a lot of room. They also are bloody heavy. I don't know if you've ever picked up a drop slide, but they weigh easily as much as a fridge, often more. So not having a drop slide and having, say, two drawers stacked on top of each other and then the fridge on the floor with a normal slide is much, much better use of your space and a massive weight saver. Now, lighting. Lighting can be the difference between overcooking your meal and nailing it. It is a huge thing. No one has ever got to camp and gone, we've just got too many lights, I think. No. Having hardwired, good quality lights that will illuminate everything, there's no such thing as having too much light at camp. It is so bloody useful. So don't just rely on a head torch. Look, you can get by with a head torch, absolutely. But it means that when you're just glancing at something over in the distance, you can tell if it's burning, or your friends can tell if it's burning and will let you know. All these kinds of things, just extra light is always worth having. And I love hardwired lights because I can't stand going and setting up a million lights around camp. Anything that's hardwired with a switch, so much easier. That's why I have lights all the way around my roof rack, and I have done on my previous cars, and it just makes all the difference. Awnings, shelter. Look, if you have the budget, get a big freestanding 270 awning. They are killer. If you go camping a couple of times a year, just get a normal pull-out awning and deal with poles and ropes. But make sure you have shelter. This morning was a perfect example. It was very dewy. My friend Jess, she slept right here in her swag, and The part that was underneath was perfectly fine. The part that was outside froze, dewy, wet. So these kinds of things can make all the difference for sleeping, but also just when that rain hits and you don't have it, or you're trying to do a gazebo or something like that, just a good awning makes such a difference. And if you do have one of those normal side rollout awnings, just do a bit of research on YouTube. Aussie Arvos actually has some really good tips on how to fix it, because they will break. You will break little bits, and there are some really easy ways to fix it. You might just need to carry a drill. Water. Now, there are a million different solutions for water. My suggestion is always to keep it simple. Now, I'm aware that mine is not particularly simple, but that's because I've gone for no rear bar, which means no jerry cans, all that kind of stuff. So keep it simple. So you want access, you want good solid access to the tank, which means you need to always have a tap. I've got a manual tap under there. So you shouldn't always be relying on pumps, because if you've got a flat battery, if you've got a blown pump, if you've got something like that, make sure that there's like a redundancy built in. Jerry cans will always be the ultimate solution for simple things. There's a video which I'll link below on Seek Adventure, which basically shows you how to put a little tap into it, which means you can have your jerry can kind of hidden away, and then a little hose and a tap on the end. It's like a $15 mod, and it makes all the difference to how you can access your water. I need to do it in my Deleca. I definitely will do it in my Deleca, because it is so useful. And also, make sure you've got enough. Make sure it's easy to access and you've got enough of it. That's so crucial. So I rarely go with less than 30 litres for like me solo on a weekend. I usually try and budget for one jerry can for 2 people per day. So 40 litres, 2 people, being conservative, no worries, that's a weekend. Tables. Now, you can get away with a cheap plastic table for a while, but if you're going to have a cheap plastic table, make sure that you've got some sort of a solution that allows you to put hot stuff on that cheap plastic table. Whether that, you can get these leather mats from Bare Bones, they're very cool, that you can put hot stuff on. You can get just a piece of stainless. Some people modify their own breadboard, so they'll get a breadboard, they get a piece of stainless, they put that on top, or a piece of aluminium. Whatever you have, make sure you have heat pads you can put on there, so you can put hot stuff on there. Or just get something that's going to last a lifetime. Get a good quality stainless steel or aluminium table. It will change your life. Once you've had one, you cannot go back, trust me. Now, the pantry. I'm not going to tell you everything that goes in my pantry, because I think it's something that is individual. Look, comment down below if you want me to put up a video of exactly what's in my pantry all the time. But yeah, I'm not going to do it in this video because it'll go too long. Now, how does my pantry look? Looks like this. This is a crash pod. You can use one of these, you can use a Kelmat bag. What you can't use, or shouldn't use, is a canvas bag. Make sure whatever you use is PVC on the inside. That is crucial. And that's because I have spilt so many things in this bag, it's not even funny. And PVC you can wipe out. Canvas soaks in. Bad idea. Don't use canvas as a pantry bag. Now, some little tips for just generally how I treat ingredients and specific foods. If it's not the centerpiece of a dish, always use a long life version of an ingredient. So if you need cream, if you need milk, if you need custard, if you need something like that, use a UHT one, use a long life version, use a powdered version if you need to. But that means it doesn't need to be refrigerated. It lasts years in some cases. And if it's not the centerpiece, you're not going to really notice that it's not the fresh version. But if something is the centerpiece, absolutely try and use the fresh version and just cook it early on in the trip. Now, with that, I've said it before, use fresh ginger and fresh garlic. It can last weeks in Tupperware. So make sure you put it in some sort of a box that's sealed. It doesn't have to be in the fridge, but just keep it sealed up and it'll last so much longer. Speaking of things that last really well, lettuce sucks. Lettuce is so bad for touring. And if you have to bring lettuce, particularly like burgers, big one, we love a bit of lettuce in our burgers. If you do have to bring it, get shredded lettuce and put it in some sort of a tub and put that in your fridge. That will last pretty well. But a whole lettuce or something that's banging around in your fridge, nightmare. It will get bruised, it'll just turn to shit, and it'll be mushy, and you're not going to get that crunch that you want from it. If you want crunch, get cabbage. Red cabbage, green cabbage, shred it. Cabbage lasts weeks in the fridge, and it doesn't bruise very easily. It's cheap. If you want that crunch in your wraps, if you want that side salad, make a coleslaw. Making coleslaw out of cabbage is about the easiest thing you can do. All you need is mayo and lime juice. Add them together, and you've got a beautiful coleslaw. So, yeah, use cabbage. Cabbage is it's my freshness, it's my crunch on long trips, and even on remote touring trips, I'll bring bloody cabbage. Spices. Now, I am so guilty of having recipes that require a lot of spices. I'm terrible for it. My Kentucky Fried Palmy has 14 spices or something. Pre-mix it. Look, we all have to plan our meals before we go. So if you're at home, pre-mix those spices and put them in a little bag or something, and just put "This is not drugs, Mr. Plod" on there, because it always looks dodgy when you've got a little bag of powder. So pre-mixing them means that instead of having 14 jars or packets or something that you have to reseal and bugger around with, it's all done. Also makes it a lot easier when you get to camp. It's one of those things that it only takes 5 minutes before you leave and makes all the difference. So definitely pre-mix all your spices. And the spices you do use regularly, try and modify recipes you've already got to work with that. So if you know that you always liked smoked paprika in your thing, absolutely bring it. But if you only use it for one thing, try and go, okay, cool, we can probably just get away with a bit of chili powder or chili flakes or something, which I do like in everything. So wherever you can, simplify your recipes and streamline your spices, do it. And you can do that when you're planning your food. So look at different things and go, okay, well, these three all need tin tomatoes or whatever it is, and this only needs half a tin, that needs half a tin. So you can streamline that as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to kind of pick a cuisine. So you go, okay, we're going to have a lot of Italian things. We're going to have pizza, we're going to have pasta. So we know we're going to need flour, tin tomatoes, garlic, onion, maybe a bit of oregano, some basil. And you can use that for multiple recipes. And that makes your life a lot simpler. Next, restocking. And this is something that I've been pretty good with it, I think, but it's something that I grapple with all the time. And that is, don't use fancy ingredients when you're trying to do bush recipes that you want to be able to restock and redo in remote environments. So I'm talking about just big country towns. So if you go, okay, cool, I'm going to do this recipe here, and you pull into Derby in the Kimberley, make sure you can get those ingredients when you do it. And so if you are writing recipes for someone else, if you're writing recipes for yourself, just remember you can't always access those interesting hipster ingredients that you can get in the city. So make sure that any ingredients you use can just be gotten from a supermarket, butcher, maybe a fishmonger. That's my rule. I always have butcher or supermarket. I don't use anything I can't get from that. So the main thing there that you miss out on is interesting Asian spices and sauces and things like that. And Mexican things and fresh chilies, different types of fresh chilies and things like that. You're going to be able to go into Coles and you're going to get the chilies they have. My final tip, use your butcher. So don't go to the supermarket and get one of those crappy trays with your meat on it. Go to your butcher. Number one, it's better to support a local business like a butcher. You're going to get a better quality ingredient, you're going to get better service, and it's just going to be a better setup. And this is why you can ask your butcher to cryovac or vacuum seal anything you want, and you can ask him to portion it and then vacuum seal it. So you go to them and you say, all right, we're going away and I want 3 Scotch fillets for the first night, and then I'm going to have some pork chops for the next night, and then I want some rissoles and some whatever. And you can get him or her to cryovac it all in preparation so that you can just pull it out and go night 1, night 2, night 3, whatever. Freeze it if you have a freezer. It just makes your life so much easier. Then, if you're getting even fancier, what you can also do is go to them and say, hey, I'm going to cook this up. if I bring it back cooked, can you please vacuum seal it? And they'll say yes. So you can cook, you can pre-make your pasta or your whatever you like, and then just heat it up when you get to camp. That's a really good one if you get in late, if you're like Ronnie Dahl or some idiot like that. But yeah, they will usually happily do that for you. Or if you want to marinate something, get your marinade, bring it into the butcher and say, hey mate, can you please, here's my marinade that I want for this chicken. Can you please add it to the cryovac bag? Because they've got special cryovacs that will work with wet things. And they will vacuum seal it, and it just makes your life so much simpler, neater, less rubbish, takes up less space. Because cryovac bags can be kind of molded, you chuck them all in defrosted. That's the other thing. Make sure you put them into your fridge or freezer defrosted. And when you're stacking them in your freezer, particularly, where as you pull it out, it's not going to change its shape, make sure it's in order that you're going to eat it. That's really important, because if you need to get the bottom one out, there's going to be a big hole, and you're not going to, anyway, it's just a nightmare. You want to be able to take it off the top and then use it. So I think that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was informative and useful for you, and I'll see you in the next one. And if you want the full list of tips, is where you get it. All good retailers are on my website.